Welcome. As people are joining our presentation today, thank you so much for joining Pivot, Creating Successful Online Conferences. I'm Dawn Crawford, and I really hope that you come away from this presentation with some real tools that you don't have to cancel your events this year. So we are going to do some polls. So if you'd like to participate in the polls, we'll do some warm-up ones. So I love Poll Everywhere. It's one of my favorite tools, and it's one of my tips. But would love for you to go to polev.com at Dawn Crawford 356, and it's also in the chat. So if you want to click on that, you can. Or you can always text my code to this fabulous number. So as you guys are getting ready to do that, let me talk a little bit about who BCDC Ideas is. We're a full-service communications agency that works exclusively with nonprofits across the country. We feel really fortunate that this is our 10th year, and on our team we have over 17 years of dedicated nonprofit experience paired with 10 years of corporate advertising experience. So our small but mighty team has some great experience to help nonprofits across the country. And we are a full service communications agency. So that really does mean that we are able to do anything that a communications director could, should, or would want to do with their time. So yeah, we start off with planning and branding and go all the way through paid advertising. We just want to make sure that we're a resource for the nation's nonprofits. Okay, so here's our first poll. So where are you watching from today? Would love to see where you're at today. And we're using this as just a warm-up engagement activity. So we're going to go to polev.com / Dawn Crawford 356 to be able to participate in this poll. I really love polls. I think they're a great way of getting people to just participate in participate in your presentation, right? And to just do something that is a little bit different and not just listening all the time. Oh man, we have a Canada. I like it. Oh, people are using the tool. Fantastic. Look at that, coast to coast, literally. Even all the way down Texas and Florida. See if we get a Washington. Come on, Washington, northern states. Oh, okay, good. There we go. Fantastic. So yeah, we're just doing some warm-up polls. Don't feel like you've missed anything. You haven't missed any content yet. Great. Okay, next question. This one hopefully will resonate with a lot of you. So in 2020, has your organization already held its big event? Have you had to postpone your big event? Have you had to cancel your big event? Or you just haven't decided what to do, and that's why you're on this call today? So this will really be helpful for me to kind of understand where you are at. So folks who are just joining us, we are doing some fun warm-up polls, some interactive activities. So you go to polev.com / Dawn Crawford 356. And we also have that in the chat. Okie dokie. So it looks like a good percentage of you have postponed your event to the fall. So this is going to be a really great presentation of helping you prepare for making it something more than, hopefully just a series of webinars and something that is truly an online event if you have to go there. I think that is something that we're really encouraging, is that to have both scenarios planned, right? That if you can do it in person, have that kind of in place. Don't pay for anything. Don't pay any of those final payments. But, really have both plans going, that you can do something online if you need to, versus holding it in person. Okay, so the good news is you can do this. This is something that you can do this year. It is hard and it's different and it's atypical, but you know what? That is what 2020 has been, right? Like, this is not how we planned to be spending this year. But know that you can do it, and that we are all tough and that we can do hard things. So just wanted to start out with a really great endorsement that we got from one of our speakers from our conference. Taylor had really honest kind of thing that she was shocked that we could actually do it. I think that's the thing, right? Is that there's a lot of fear and worry about shifting your in-person conference into something online and still having it run smoothly, be effective, and really connect to your audience. And I think with the tips that you get today, and if you need professional help, we're here too, but you can do this. This really does work, and it's something that is absolutely possible. So we really do believe that this is the year, and definitely even thinking about 2021, that this is the time to pivot to online conferences. So let's get real, so it's going to be hard to have in-person conferences and big in-person events over the next few years. We work a lot in public health. I've been in public health communications for the past 13 years, and there's just going to be more localized quarantines. So that's what we're seeing in China already, is that zones of the country are already being quarantined again in their second wave. So it's very likely that we're going to see more taking steps back in our phases of stay at home. Travel budgets are also going to be trimmed, especially for nonprofit folks, right? And any state employees, that they're not going to be allowed to travel probably in all of 2021. So that's also part of your consideration, is just how to get people to your event. And that often that in-person events are expensive, and we've all kind of seen that they're becoming less effective, right? We're seeing less people register. We're seeing less return customers, right? That even our Create Good conference, that is in our 6th year, that we only have around 20% of reoccurrent people who come back every year. So I think it's something to really think about and really kind of weigh that idea of whether the in-person conference is still right for your organization. And also, conferences are germ factories. At the beginning of the COVID outbreak, they were one of the big infection accelerators. We saw a lot of people coming out of conferences in the Northeast with the virus. So, speaking at ordinary volume can produce enough droplets to stay in the air for at least 8 minutes. So this idea of being together is going to be difficult until we really get a handle on this infection. Also, we really find that communicating that shift to online conferences is a better value for your ticket. That we offered recordings to all the sessions of our conference. So, people were not getting FOMO on those concurrent sessions. Our conference is very specialized. It's nonprofit communications. So everybody there is a communicator. Every single session is in that communications track, right? And so people often is like, oh, I wish I could have gone to like 3 different things at the same time. So with an online conference and with recordings, you can offer that ability for people to see all of your content and all of your speakers, instead of just seeing that one person for each slot. Then also people get to watch on their schedule. We're all looking at differences in our schedule now, right? About whether if you're doing homeschooling or you're caring for people, or even, unfortunately, if you get sick, right? That this will give your audience opportunities to watch it on their time when it works for them. So the benefits and challenges, I think since we've lived through this idea of working from an in-person event to an online event, we really see both the benefits and the challenges, right? I think there's really something that you have to look at as your organization, is really weigh these two things. So the pros is that you still get to provide your knowledge to your attendees, right? You still get to share and increase everybody's knowledge. And I think that is critical. It's important during these times. It's dramatically less to do an online conference than it is to do an in-person conference. So you don't have to feed people, you don't have to pay for the space, you don't have to pay for linens, rentals, AV, it's just, insurance, all those things. You don't have to pay for it when you go online. There are certainly some costs, but it's dramatic how much that cost difference is. And it really is a benefit in a year where an organization could be hurting in a lot of other ways, that you can still make this income and really gain a lot from it. It's also less expensive for your audience to attend. So folks who are traveling, folks who need to travel to come out to it's just less expensive, right? That they can also multitask. So in your downtimes, they're able to do a lot more of getting their actual work done and things like that. And, we really feel that the show can go on regardless of future quarantines. So this idea is you're not at the mercy of local quarantines and local problems, that you have an opportunity to be in control of when your conference happens and how it happens. Okay, so yeah, I'm an optimistic person, so a lot of pros, but there's also definitely some cons. We found that it was twice as much prep time. So do not let anybody tell you that this is going to be easier. It's definitely not easier to do an online conference. It's less expensive. There's a lot of other things, but it's definitely not easier. Technology can always fail you. We're at the mercy of internet connections, these services working well. There's a lot that can go wrong, and that's stressful for sure. It also relies on speakers to take an extra step of being more interactive, that they can't rely on just that Q&A or that, in between sessions for people to feel connected to them. And so your speakers you need to ask your speakers to be a little bit more engaged. It's just not an experience, right? So people come to conferences for the experience and for the opportunity to step away from their desk sometimes and to take that mini mental vacation to learn something new and focus on their own professional development. And so while you do get to focus on your professional development, you're doing it from your house, and it's just not the experience. You don't get that ability to meet new people and to see new things and do the fun things that are the connective tissues of conferences. It's really tough to network with colleagues, right? So people, in our feedback, we really heard that, they really wish the reason you go to conferences for some people is to network. And so, the top people who canceled their tickets immediately for a conference were folks at agencies and people who were there to work the crowd. So networking is really tough. It can also be really tough for your sponsors and booth vendors and things like that. One thing that was really surprising for us was just how an online conference is not very emotionally satisfying for extroverts. If you gather your power from people and your energy from people, this is really hard, right? It feels like a whole lot of work and not a lot of payoff emotionally. That we really love Create Good because it creates a community, and that we get to meet and see people who love nonprofit communications as much as we do. And we really didn't get to get that this year as event planners. So I think that was an interesting thing. We also did not increase ticket sales, right? This idea of if anybody could attend online from anywhere in the country, that they would. And we had exactly the same amount of tickets sold for in-person versus the online conference. So, I had to pivot and I had to change my plan around 4 to 6 weeks before the event. So, and I'd already kind of spent out my marketing budget at that point. So, I think we could have probably had an increase in ticket sales if I would have been online for the whole time, but that's not really this conversation, right? That if you have to pivot, that it's not necessarily that you could, all of a sudden just have this tidal wave of ticket sales. For us, we didn't have that experience. You may have something different if you're able to put some marketing dollars into it. Okie dokie. So the other things to really think about is that it really feels like you're presenting to ghosts. There's been a lot of interesting things coming out now. There's a lot of good articles about what it's like to just have all these Zoom calls and all this Zoom stuff, and why it's just not satisfying is that while we're having these conversations with people and through screens, you're missing out on the human contact part, right? And you're missing out on those little aside glances that you have with your friends at dinner, or, those little winks that you have to people during meetings when you're your boss is saying something crazy. So I think, it's emotionally different to present into an online performance space. You just don't get that energy from the crowd. But there's a lot of benefits. And I think for me, the real the rainbow of all this is that this is what will help us all feel normal, right? That canceling a conference because you can't figure it out or you're worried about it, the technology failing, or that you just don't think people will get it is the easy way out, right? I mean, we wanted to cancel so many points when we were planning our online conference. It was really hard because it was a lot more work, it was a lot more thinking, but it's also kept normal. And right now, when so much stuff is being canceled, when people's vacations and their favorite traditions, that this is something that people can look forward to, that they want to be part of, and that they want to gain this knowledge. And I think there's just so many benefits that, this year you can really gain a lot of income from your ticket sales. I think this will be the last year where you can just say, it's going to cost the same amount for you to come to my conference, and charge them the same amount. I think next year you'll probably have to change your ticket price to reflect the value of only having online content. But I think this year that we all understand that this is how this works, this is how it's budgeted, and that, really the cost can stay the same. So, I think that we need normal, that you holding your conference is normal, and keep that as your motivation, and that you really are helping people gain knowledge and help them change the world. So here's our story. So we did pivot our conference in 6 weeks from being in person to going completely online. So January, all's well. We're doing it in April. It's going to be awesome. Come out to Durham. So late January and February, it all hits. We all lived through this. It was a very uneasy time of trying to figure out what you're doing. So we started seeing that people were getting incredibly sick coming out of conferences. And with our public health background, we couldn't be responsible for that. We couldn't, it would be really, really awful for us personally that if somebody got sick at our conference. So, March, this is also when all that started happening. We were like, the conference is still happening, but we're taking public health precautions. We're going to have bottled water instead of, shared water stations, stuff like that. And then by March 12th, it had been shifted completely online. That we said that we're not changing the ticket price because they got access to all 20 sessions. So before, you could really only see a total of probably around 7 to 8 sessions because of the way that we had 3 concurrent tracks. So now everybody got 20 sessions, and they had access to all these speakers. We did have 2 speakers drop out, including one of our keynotes. So that was a little stressful for a couple of days, but we were able to fill in, and we were able to add some new things that would only work online. And then about a month later, we actually really kind of thought hard about our schedule. We really think online that we could do concurrent sessions still, all those sort of things. But what we decided then was to expand it from 2 days to 5 days. So we had programming Monday through Friday versus a Thursday, Friday. And, it was something that we had to do personally. But also I think it worked really, really well. And then April 20th through the 24th, our conference happened completely online. It was completely successful. We only had 1 session that we needed to re-record, and we did that on, I think, the Friday afternoon. And so all of our sessions were finalized and done and up by June 1st is when we had all the recorded sessions ready. So our schedule. So we did 2 sessions in the morning. We did a lunch Zoom interest group. So we had one of our speakers come back during lunch and answer questions from folks on a Zoom call. And then we did 2 sessions in the afternoon. We did a social happy hour after that on a couple days. And then a big key for us was having 30-minute gaps between each session so that we could get in there with the speaker and prep them, their slides, make sure everything is ready to go. And so we did this with a team of 4 people behind the scenes. So it was Brian, who is my business partner and husband. So he took the morning sessions, and then I took the afternoon sessions, and then our team of Kate and Michelle hosted the lunch Zooms and those sort of things. So Yeah, so it worked really well. We were able to have everybody could have access to all the live sessions, and then they could also come back in and get the recorded sessions. But really, the reason we had to do it is because my husband and I are homeschooling our 7-year-old. You know, we're teaching a first grader at home, and so we needed to be parents for the other half of the day. And I think it worked really well. You know, she was great, but so that it was, yeah, it let us kind of be focused. And I think the 2 sessions worked really well, right? Wasn't too much content. It just worked really well. So the tools that we used, we have our website. And so that's where we really put all of our event details, speaker schedule, ticket sales portal, and also where we put our recorded sessions after after they were placed. And then, you know, we're going to hold those there until December. We also used Eventbrite. The ticket fees were passed on, so that was a free tool for us. GoToWebinar was our webinar broadcast tool. So we got one with two organizers, and just for a month, so it only cost us $500 to do that, which was really great. And the reason we did 2 organizers was that that way we could do those 30-minute gaps. So if somebody needed to go over for their presentation, say at 1 o'clock, then we had our team creating a second room for that 2:30 session. And then we also used Zoom. So we paid for Zoom so that we could have good hosts and a lot of control over our rooms. And yeah, so we did have some speaker fees. I think we spent around $10,000 in speaker fees. And then probably an additional thing for like $1,000 in speaker gifts. But this is really our costs, right? Like we put on this conference for right around 15,000. So our response, we did get 133 attendees, which is pretty normal for us. About 100 attended the live session, so we did have some drop off there. And then we did get 15 refunds. That's about double what we usually get every year, so that was a little bit interesting. But people loved it. It worked. It worked really, really well. In our survey, that 86% thought that it was the right ticket price, so they were not concerned about it was $200 this year. 97% of respondents said that they would recommend to a colleague, so they liked it so much that they would be our word of mouth, you know, marketing, and that 62% said that they were likely to attend a future event, and 0 said they wouldn't. So I think that is really important, right? So it's not only that people thought it was well priced, that they would endorse it and recommend it to somebody else, but that they would come back for this experience. You know, that it was something that really did work for our attendees. People said nice things. I mean, I think it's good to hear that. It's always nice to hear those kind of endorsements. Okay, so how do you do it? How do you bring your conference online? So first off, you really have to pick your broadcast tool. And this is something that I think is highly personal to your organization. We really liked GoToWebinar. I am not paid by GoToMeeting or by GoToWebinar. It is just a tool that I've really enjoyed, its simplicity. For us, you know, it was the known tool. So when we were pivoting and having to do so much other change, I wanted to know that I could use my tool very effectively and that I was able to not have confusion of how to use my webinar tool. So I thought what I really liked about it is that it focuses on the speakers and screen share. It really does make the presentation key. That it records automatically was a really cool thing. It's just one less thing for us to remember. The Q&A queue was really cool, and there's also a raised hand feature. So if people wanted to speak to the presenter, you could just unmute that one person and they could ask their question. So that was a really cool thing. So it's much like a microphone at a regular conference. People can use video, but you know, not a lot of people did. There's no chat with the audience. So now in my conference presentation right now, I have a chat queue and people are writing me notes and that sort of thing. So people can't chat back. You can only send links to your audience in GoToWebinar. So that's a little weird. There's this great channel tool. So that really streamlines if you want to offer recorded sessions quickly. It's really cool. So what you do is it automatically records it. It processes the video for you, and then it'll put it up on a channel. And so that you can restrict access to that channel, and then only paid people can see it. So that's really cool. we had everybody sign up for individual sessions to get their links and to get into that session. So you can really control who gets into which session that way. I thought that was really handy. And then you can charge for each individual session through the tool. So that's another kind of like income strategy, right? Is like, are you able to break up all of your sessions into individual prices? So maybe people buy them for $25 each instead of buying the whole ticket for $2,500 or whatever. That's a lot. Anyway, you know, whatever your pricing structure is. And then we also use Zoom. So I really liked using Zoom for more of the kind of the social things and the kind of less formal presentation. So it was really good for featuring both the audience and the speakers. So when we were doing like a social hour, like it showed everybody equally, right? Which is really nice. And I think it's a little bit easier, easier interface. People are used to it now. Everybody's done a Zoom happy hour by now. That recordings were super easy, and that I kind of feel that screen share is a little clumsy. But there are tons of other options. I mean, this is one of the areas of major business growth is online webinars, right? So a lot of people like Hopin, which is HOPIN.TO or something. They have some weird extender. But people really like that. We looked at it, and it was not a great tool for us. They were pushing hard out of beta when we were looking at it, so I was uncomfortable with that. But there's a bunch of really great things. This is an article for some random agency I found, but there's a lot of great stuff out there. So really, I think that's your first thing, is to figure out what tool you want to use. The next thing to really make this key is to prepare your speakers. So we did tech rehearsals with all of our speakers before the conference. And for us, that was a big change. Like we're pretty fair and accepting, and we believe that we work with a bunch of professionals, so we don't really do a lot of speaker prep before this year, but this year was really critical. So we did a tech rehearsal with them to check their sound and visual, so that they sounded good, but also that they looked okay and it didn't look completely crazy behind them in their camera. So, and kind of worked with them on lighting and things like that. And also you need to encourage your speakers to go above and beyond for engagement. So that was something we tried. And I think if we were to do this again, we'd have to really reinforce and make some almost requirements of asking people to do polling or handouts or something to make it more engaging. You do have to have a plan B if technology fails. So our plan B for technology was that if something happened and either their technology failed or our technology failed, that if we couldn't get it going within 3 to 5 minutes, that we would just end the session and record it later. So for us, it was really important that we did it fast, because we've been on things that you sit around for like 5 to 10 minutes and like try to get it to work, and it's just awful. So we really wanted our plan B to be very fast and very short and very clear. But luckily we didn't have to do that. And so we held this 1 hour prep session, plus we hosted their sessions. I think that's something that's also a little different for event planners, is that we had to sit in on every single session that we had. And I think for an event planner, we know that usually during session times is when you're running around doing all the things you need to do, including checking your own email, making sure things are in place, those sort of things. So we needed to be completely dedicated and focused on hosting those sessions. So I think that was something that was really interesting, and also just contributes to that more time, right? That this isn't easier, it's just different. So speaker tips, I think people are just a lot more accepting of seeing this type of presentation. There's a lot of commercials now of showing people in their Zoom cameras and Microsoft Teams. And then also, the Disney sing-along was all shot at people's homes. And I think that's, pretty good example of how to make this work. And I think it's a good thing also to watch, just to see how they made shooting through, a lens work in so many different scenarios. It's something that's really kind of fun to see how they pulled that off. And it's a bunch of different scenarios, which is really cool. So visual, I think I've really liked when people are using natural light versus, trying to do a lamp or something. that they need to find a simple background and also come as you are, right? I mean, look at these folks on the Disney sing along. They are dressed up in their t-shirts, right? Like this is not, people need to reflect their audience. And I think people are doing a really good job of that. So audio, I think also using your earbuds or a professional mic is really important. It's also, you see all these guys all have headphones or earbud or something in. So it's definitely good to hear yourself. Avoiding empty rooms is a little tip that really helps with audio. If you hear stories about people who are trying to take meetings or like do a recording, they're doing it in their closet because it just makes a better noise, right? It just makes better, richer sound. And then that phone is usually better than voice over IP. This presentation is on voice over IP because I got a fancy new microphone. But during our conference, we really recommended that everybody use phones because it was a little bit clearer audio. And then your slides, keep them simple, keep them pretty, right? Like that the slides are also really key to an online presentation, that somebody prattling on for an hour is going to get real hard to pay attention to. Okay, the next tip is about keeping it short because it is sweet, right? That reducing speaker time was something that I wish we would have done. That we had a long keynote, which was fantastic and inspirational, but it was really long. I mean, if you think about listening to your own favorite podcasts or any sort of audio content, that it's shorter now, right? Like it's 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So I think that's something I wish we would have done differently. Consider offering shorter sessions because they're just easier to digest, right? It's hard to listen and just listen to somebody for an hour. Yeah, it's just difficult. And then also try different formats. Maybe you produce some of your Q&A chats as a podcast. Don't even do a visual. Just record a podcast and and have people be able to listen to it while they're on their walk, while they're doing the things that they need to do. I think there's a lot of different ways of doing this. So making it interactive. So this was our number one request from our survey, was about that they wanted folks to be more interactive. And that's really hard in adult education, right? That we're very used to just putting up our slides and talking at people like I am right now. And, because we have a lot to say and a lot to learn. And then online, it is really hard to do hands-on or small group stuff. I think there is some ways of doing it, of creating like Google Rooms, or maybe even using the new Facebook group function and creating rooms and letting people work together. This is a big place where you are going to have to pivot and be creative. So some ways that we did make it more interactive was about using polls. So I love Poll Everywhere. We've done that a couple times today. But also there's Mentimeter. There's a bunch of great other ones that people love that are polls. Build in more Q&A breaks. Let people ask you more questions and let it be more interactive in that way. Post thoughtful questions for thoughtful response. I think that's something else. You can't just open it up and be like, anybody have any questions? Really think about a question that'll trigger people to interact with you. And then maybe create something, have them create something at their desk or wherever they're listening, and then share it to social media. Really use those additional tools to share things and to be able, for them, they'll be easily send you feedback with taking a picture of it or making cool poetry or making a video, something like that. Like do something that kind of breaks the rules. Maybe add a pop quiz, like really check and see who's sleeping in the back row, right? Like I think it's a fun thing of doing some really kind of cool things and just being interactive and being thoughtful. Okay, so our next quiz of being interactive is, what's your favorite way to engage with speakers? What is a memorable thing that has worked for you at a conference lately? Great. So we have some really great stuff here. We have giveaway swag, short video clips, small group discussions. You could definitely do that with Zoom. Um, one of our speakers used a card deck, and it was a PDF document that was sent out to everybody who signed up. And so they were able to print it out or manage how they were going to use that in real life, and then used it during the presentation. Oh, encourage the audience to stand up and move. Yeah, we tried that. So we did one during one of our workshops. We did two 2-hour workshops. And in the middle of one of them, we're like, everybody gets a 10-minute break, like go move. And I found some clip to like chair yoga. And the only feedback I got was like, that was weird. So I think, I mean, audiences are audiences, right? But I think there's some fun things you could do. One thing we really wanted to do was to create a TikTok dance that had to do with Create Good. We were going to come up with a touch-free greeting if we were able to have our conference in person, and that's something that could work still if you get to do your conference in person, is to create some sort of wacky greeting, right? Like some sort of like inspired dance that people could do for each other when they want to meet each other versus shaking hands or things like that. So great lunch breaks together, breakout sessions. Yeah, asking the audience what they know, what they want versus needs to know. I think that's great. Anything before surprises. Surprises are always good. I think that is something that, is really valuable. Okay, so got our speakers, right? Our speakers need to step up a little bit. You got your tool. Okay, so what else do you need to do to bring this online? You've got to communicate with class. You're going to have to communicate so much more than you did before, because people are not like in this captive audience of being at keynotes or being in a space where you can put up a bulletin board or just shout at people over snacks. It's you've got to communicate more. And also, I think it should be that it should be a delight to hear from your team. This should be something that makes them happy and just appreciated and excited to be part of this different experience. So one thing, we actually learned this from one of our clients. So at their conference, they would send a daily email with updates and sessions, links, and so things like that. So I think that works really, really well. People relied on it after a while, which was really interesting. So people would sign up for their sessions that day. Be transparent and honest about everything. So we, told them that everybody's gonna be wearing t-shirts. Like, y'all just get used to it. That it's different and it's hard. And we said that in our emails. We're like, we hope that you understand that this is a new experience for us and for most of our speakers, and that there might be hiccups, but that that we're all trying our best. And I think just being transparent and real from the start is great, and just asking people to be kind. We always communicated our plan B, so the whole 3 to 5 minute rule, that if something happened, we close shop. And I think that was really important for us, for everybody to know. One thing that was really interesting for us is that our social media engagement completely tanked. So we did really cool like graphics, and we were very active on social media, but none of our attendees were active. So I think it's something that if you need that or count on that you have to have a concerted effort to remind people to go be on social. But yeah, it was really difficult. And so that was something that I don't know if I totally know the solution for, but it's something to definitely keep in mind. So also, not everything needs to be live. This was a big learning for us. So we pre-recorded our welcome and our closing messages, which is just Brian and I thanking everybody, thanking our sponsors in particular, setting the scene and kind of doing a little inspirational message about the theme for our conference and why we're here and all those sort of things. So we pre-recorded that and sent it as the start email on Monday. So people were able to watch that at their leisure. Also, it let Brian and I be in the same space at the same time, because we're also passing ships because of our homeschool schedule. But it was actually really nice. I really enjoyed that. It gave us an opportunity to, do it together and do it in a way that really made a lot of sense for us. Our keynote was also recorded and sent on Monday. That was another thing that was kind of, I couldn't figure out what the schedule. She's in Canada, and so time zones were different. I couldn't figure out how to get her there on a Monday morning. So that worked really well. I wish it would have been shorter, but it's something in hindsight that I didn't even think about. So yeah, keynotes can be recorded and then watched at everybody's leisure. And that, it just makes it easier for you to fit everything into the schedule. If you kind of record, and also people who like, oh, I can't do it that week, or something comes up for your speakers, you can always pre-record their session and then just broadcast it at the time. I don't think that everything should be pre-recorded and broadcasted, though. I think there is some sort of magic to having live sessions where people can ask questions of their speakers and to interact in that way. I think if we just had all pre-recorded, that it would have been a library of webinars, right? And just that that people would be purchasing into, library of content and not necessarily attending a conference. Yep, recorded messages, there we are. That's how we did it. We did it with our iPhone. We had our Post-it to get it done. I mean, luckily Brian and I have been quarantined together, so it was easy for us to be less than 6 feet away from each other, but there's a lot of really cool things you can do with that. So also just providing ways to connect, that this is what really makes it a conference and not a series of webinars, that you really want to have opportunities for people to ask their questions, to engage with speakers that they really liked, to possibly connect with each other, right, in a way, and Zooms and those sort of things. So yeah, we used interest groups over lunch. There were just one speaker came back. We had a hosted Q&A. People were able to ask questions of that speaker that they couldn't get to during their presentation. They worked really well. Like, people really enjoyed them because it was really thoughtful questions and more discussion and collaboration than a presentation. We also did social hours, so we did cocktails and convos on 2 different themes, and those were really fun. For me, as an extrovert and event planner, like, I really, that was magic. Like, I kind of think I want to do the social hours throughout the year, because that was really great. It felt really good. It felt like we were connecting with people in the audience, and the cocktail thing was fun, and it just really helped create good Be Fun for us. And also, you could do trivia nights. You could do a film festival. I really wanted to do a film festival of having all of our attendees send in their nonprofit videos so that we could put them on a YouTube channel and showcase those. Trivia nights would be fantastic around whatever your subject area is. There's a lot of opportunity to do fun stuff, to get people to connect and to be together and to really interact. So yeah, I really loved our social hour on Zoom. I think it really was a cool way of seeing people from the conference and letting them have additional access to folks. So we had 2 different themes. We did a on being brave. So we talked about how people were going to plan on being brave for the year to come. And I think that was a really meaningful conversation. And then we also did a nonprofit forecast, and that was more about how we can all prepare for the next year. So I think you always want to look for this in your conferences, is this idea of surprise and delight, that you have an opportunity with people who are interested in your subject to make them even more happy and even more delighted. And this is something we really, really love about conferences, is this opportunity to see people smile and to make a difference in their day. So yeah, absolutely. The number one drawback of an online experience is losing the experience. That it's not going someplace. It's not, it's just not an experience anymore. And I think there are ways you can recreate that by being creative. So we sent watch kits before the conference with swag and fun stuff. I'll show you what that looks like. Also just have surprises throughout the week. Maybe you have a surprise speaker. Maybe you have a surprise keynote. Just think through what you could do to make it a little bit surprising and fun and extra for people who are there. And then also just get creative. Think about what people care most about your issue or your subject and build that into something that will be very, very meaningful to them. So this is our watch kit. So yeah, we sent these 2 folks who sent us their home address. That was something that was key. So everybody put in their work address. And then when we decided we wanted to send these about 4 weeks before the conference, all I had was work addresses. So I had to go back through and ask people if they had a home address and if they even wanted to receive a package to their home. So this was in April, so people were serious about package contamination and things like that. But it was really fun. I think we made it fun. It's about sunglasses and popcorn and fidget toys and a Brave badge, and just really thank them for being part of our conference. So that's how you do it. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, right? And so how do you know when to call in a professional? How do you know when to ask for help? And I think one thing that's really true is that event planners are not webinar planners. That event planners are often folks who love, process and people and connecting and things like that. And, that they're not necessarily the folks who are going to be really good at making sure that all the tech is correct and that you've picked the right webinar tool and, all of the things that could go wrong in an online conference. But these are truly different skill sets to plan an online conference, and that there's so much work to do. And I think that's something that I just don't want any of your bosses to be like, oh, it's going to be so much easier to do an online conference than it is to do, an in-person conference. Cause we're not gonna have to go anywhere. We're not gonna have all these people. And it's so much work and it's so different. Yeah. So, but you know what? We're here to help. So BCDC Ideas is offering online conference services of, that we can help you build a custom package that works for you. This is really about, for us, of hoping to share our knowledge that we have in this space and sharing nonprofits so that you don't have to cancel. And again, keep the normal, right? Keep that normalcy for the people who care about your organization. So now, this is our last poll, I believe. How are you feeling about hosting your next online conference? Do you feel positive and green? Or are you still kind of worried? Oh, still worried. Oh, we're sad. Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, I think that this is a new frontier and it's something that, but I really hope that we all feel that we can do it, right? And that it might not feel like what we want to do because we're people. We need our people. But I think, again, the more that we can inspire normalcy and keep doing the good that your organization does. And I know conferences are a huge part of mission for a lot of organizations, that this is how you are developing your programs and connecting with your audiences and making a difference and changing the world is through these in-person experiences. And that I really do hope that you feel more confident in being able to host your online conference. Well, thank you so much. Today, I'm going to open up the phone lines, I guess they are, for questions. I felt very radio host there. But yeah, you can chat if you'd like to, and I'm going to go back through my chat and see if we got any questions. But yeah, thank you for listening today, and go ahead and I think you can unmute yourself if you want to ask me a question.
Hi there.
Hey.
This is John Shavako. Can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
We have 1 million panels. So we have 36 sessions and we have 22 of them were planned as panels with a moderator, and the panels are typically a moderator and 4 panelists is pretty common. Mm-hmm. So we're just like, oh my God, we just have so many presenters in our current format, and we're planning to have a live event early in September. Just wondering, you're using 2 different platforms, and do you think that panels might be better in one platform versus another? I'm also obviously I could pair those. I need to pare a lot of things down, but we're 2 days and 37 sessions, 22 panels.
Yeah. I did like Zoom, and the more I use it, so I record a lot of interviews on Zoom now for YouTube content. So what I like about Zoom is that it puts the person who's speaking up top, or you can have it show all of the speakers, so it feels more that there's still a panel, they're all still represented. So I really did like Zoom for that, unless they have some sort of thing they want to show. So I think so GoToWebinar also let you have multiple video speakers, that they could be on screen at the same time. They kind of stacked them up on the left-hand side. So that might work too. But yeah, I think for Zoom, you can also shut it down so it's only the presenters are seen on screen and things like that. So, but also, I mean, I think podcasts could be really interesting for a panel, right? That you're just letting people focus on the audio versus the visual. And that, yeah, do they really need to see your panelists speak and moving their mouth? I don't know, but I think a podcast could be really interesting. Does that help?
It does. It all feels overwhelming. So don't, I appreciate your answer. Put it that way.
Right.
I'm collecting information.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay, let's see. So what about WebEx? So I can't really speak to any other tools. So yeah, I really like GoTo. I really like Zoom. I haven't really used any other WebEx. So if anybody has any experience with WebEx, it'd be great to drop that into chat. How do you take care of all the virtual housekeeping? Reminders to mute, communicating the valid plan Bs on top of each day in each session. And why do you not take, or did you not take time at the session to do that? So we did not do any housekeeping, mainly for the recorded sessions. So we wanted the recorded sessions to be as clean as possible, right? As much continuity as possible. So we did not do any like sponsor thank yous or housekeeping at the end of any of those presentations, so that people could just drop into the content right away when they were looking at the recorded sessions. So we use daily emails to give any sort of updates or changes or things like that. The GoToWebinar also mutes all your people who are not speakers. So you have to promote your people into a speaker position, and then everybody who's not in a speaker position is automatically muted, and you get to unmute them. So that is an amazing feature of these webinar tools, and the ones that are really made for webinars is that they have that kind of stuff in control. So that was really helpful. And then emails is really how we communicated a lot of stuff. So how long was your keynote session? We came in at 45 minutes on our recorded session. That was long. And she was also, we loved her and she was very inspirational, but she was a step off from what we usually do. And so we always have one person who's dead on for what nonprofit communicators are going to love them, but it's going to be great. And then we always have somebody who's like, and then this is stuff we think you should learn about. So she was definitely more this is stuff you should learn about. So yeah, it was long, but so I would have definitely keep that one shorter. Did you add lower thirds to your live sessions? So yeah, adding title and display and appear as the lower third of the session. So no, we did that all in the openers. So the ones that went on our channel for GoToWebinar were only available on that channel for that week after the presentations, while our team was able to go through and add openers and closers to every single presentation. So we have a branded opener. We have thanking our sponsors, and then we have their name and the organization on our openers for each presentation, and then it goes into their presentation. And then we have some closers at the end. So that's how we handled that, and that's also how we handled sponsor visibility, was through the recorded sessions, which is going to have greater longevity and better visibility for sponsors too. Okay. What accommodations did you make for those who are willing to participate with phones? I don't really know if that's, John, can you clarify that one? And then do you know of how many sessions were watched versus recorded? Yeah, so we had only probably around a third of any of our attendees show up for a live presentation. So I think the most we had somebody sign up was about 50 people show up for one of our sessions. So it was around a third. So that was interesting. And then, yeah, people have opportunity to watch recordings for a while. Okay, so John, can you?
Yeah, Dawn, can you hear me all right? There's some background noise here.
You're good.
What I know there are, looking at a PC, the screen is a lot bigger and you can, probably do more things. But if somebody's going to be attending the conference with a phone, a smartphone, do you have to do anything with formats or is that up to them on the receiving end?
It's a very good point and something I haven't thought about before now. And I think that's a funny thing about this
Okay.
too, right? About shifting all this is all the questions. Um, yeah, it was hard for us to get our speakers to pivot at all. So I think that is something that you should definitely add to your speaker requests. Is big type is something that you could watch on your phone. I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good request. Is yeah, a maximum of 3 bullets. Like don't make it crazy. I think it's hard for charts and graphs and things like that, but it's a really good point. And I think it's another reason why maybe you rely on audio more, right? If you know that your audience is going to be watching from their phone, that really rely on audio, and that podcasts and things where it just drops out the presentation completely might be more useful.
And while I've got you,
Yeah.
in terms of hosting, you can, I would hope that we could find a host that's pretty lively, that may have some public speaking skills. Did you do anything with hosts, people that host it, to embellish upon that or add a little more flavor?
It was Brian and I, and so yeah, I think we're good for our audience. We know our audience, so we weren't over the top. But I agree. Yeah, if you could have, especially for those panels or things that help keep that interview lively and interesting, and somebody that can ask good questions on their feet, that would be fantastic. I think again, that's what makes this an experience, right, and not just a series of webinars. But yeah,
Thank
finding
you.
really good people for that would be fantastic. That's a great idea.
Thank
Okay, did you put together and mail all the watch kits yourself, or did you have a service do it? We actually did it ourselves. I was only able to get about 50 home addresses of our participants, so we're only about a third. And so we did that pretty quickly. So we had 2 folks, so Brian and I doing it, and it took us like 3 hours to assemble the boxes and put all the stuff in. So that wasn't that big. I was more worried about it than it actually turned out to be a problem. So I was also going to make my 7-year-old help, but we ended up doing it without needing to add some child labor to it. And then, did you have participants register for individual sessions for certain days, or just the event overall? And what would you recommend? So yeah, so people were registered for the whole event, and then people did need to register for individual sessions to get their link. The reason I did that was I felt it was a good barrier to keep people out who hadn't paid. And I could have gone back and checked and bounced people who did not pay. That was something I could have done. I'm just not that crazy. So I didn't really care. If something desperately needed that content, it was going to be okay. And so I like that because we had a little bit more control. That everything was individual. They got communications about that individual session, which was really nice. So they got a reminder at an hour before and then at 10 minutes before to show up, which we all know we're all very thankful for our reminders right now in this weird, like, never-ending day cycles. So I really like them being individual. I think it might have annoyed attendees, but I think it's also good for security. Great. Oh yeah, same question. So Emily was thinking about have an unstructured approach in dividing sessions over 1 to 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, that's what's nice about this is that people can't sign up for them individually or whatever. So I think, yeah, it would be good to figure out how you could let somebody opt into all. I don't know. That would be something you'd want to talk to your webinar host about. My nonprofit would love to conduct some virtual tours during our conference. Anybody have some advice about how to set that up? Send me a message. That's a great idea. right? I think that is a cool way of being interactive. And that'd be a cool way of getting your audience to interact with you, is have them like even take a photo of where they're where they're watching from. That would be really cool. And I think it's all just use your iPhone at this point. iPhones or whatever smartphone you have. It's a smartphone, not an iPhone. Whatever smartphone you have has all the video capabilities that you need. So yeah, do it a Facebook Live. Use some other sort of live broadcast tool. That can be pretty neat. I like that idea a lot. Did you collect registration money before you canceled? And also, did you allow refunds? So yes, we were selling tickets from like November through April. And yes, so our refund policy didn't change. So people could refund their ticket a week before the conference. So we were very clear about that throughout the thing. And I was just like, it's like, if this is not your vibe, this exact language that we used. If this is not your vibe, go ahead and cancel. Like no questions asked. You know, that, yeah, we allowed people to cancel all the way up to a week before, which is also really nice for people who do event planning, that we could, right? Like you didn't have to put in your final numbers to anybody. So like we didn't lose and have extra lunches and stuff like that. So I think that was actually another great cost benefit and just worry benefit. But yeah, we let people cancel their ticket all the way up to the end. So, and also because you're going to make so much more money off of this conference, that it's okay to let people decide whether this is a good thing for themselves. I did have one person try to cancel after I sent out the link for everybody to sign up to all the sessions. So I did that. I only sent out the link to the individual sessions after the refund date, because that was the only way for me to control that somebody who was paid was correctly in the room. And so yeah, somebody did try to cancel after that date, and thankfully I do it through Eventbrite, and there's no way for me to change my cancellation policy, and I can't refund somebody after my refund policy is expired. So I get to blame Eventbrite that I couldn't refund them, but I felt that was a little interesting for sure. How did you moderate the interest groups and social hours, and were there concurrent groups? So moderating, I moderated the happy hours and my team moderated the interest groups, and we just welcomed people. We had 3 questions kind of in the bank ready to go to ask our speakers, and then we just opened it up after that to let people ask questions of the speakers. So it was enough to like get everybody used to the format and then have them talk. And then there was one concurrent group, because I messed up my schedule. So we did have a lunchtime session during a 2-hour workshop, and that lunch session was very poorly attended. So I think that's something to consider, is making sure that there's no concurrent. Actually, concurrent did not work for us at all. So I think, you know, that really being thoughtful about concurrency is a good idea. Virtual tours. Yeah, if anybody has any experience, drop it in the link. I haven't seen anything, so yeah. Yes, any insight in making your conference accessible to people who are deaf or hard of hearing? So that is absolutely something that is going to be really challenging for this platform, is how do you do that? Cool thing that happened with GoToWebinar. GoToWebinar does translations. So they did an automatic typed translation of every presentation. It's automatic, so it's a robot did it. So who knows how accurate it was, and we did not take time to go back through it. But that is something that you could do, is offer transcripts of every single presentation. And GoToWebinar did offer that service automatically. So if you recorded your session, so that's a good tip. That would work really well. Live, it doesn't help at all with people with a live session. And I mean, I think if it's a large part of your population that needs that access, I mean, you could have an interpreter on screen the entire time as one of the video slots, and they could do, sign language interpretation during the presentation and be seen. So that could work really, really well. I think there's great models of that. There's some great guy who's doing it. Oh, I guess he's doing it on stage. Never mind. Anyway, but that would work really, really well. Let's see. Cool. How would you charge for a similar conference next time around? Yeah, so I think it's about session count. And I think I'm going to actually test that this summer. So I'm going to have our keynote come back, and we're going to let all the people who registered, the keynote who canceled. So we're going to have her come back and present and invite everybody who signed up to come for free. And then we're actually going to sell additional slots to see kind of what the threshold is for that. I mean, I think my value was around $10 to $20 per session, is pretty much going value for a lot of educational content. I think in certain sectors it gets a lot higher, right? And if it has educational guarantees on it, that it's a continuing education credit or something like that, that I think, yeah, use your industry standard for that cost of what another webinar would be. But I think for just nonprofit knowledge, that between $10 and $20 per session is probably your value. And then it's about how many sessions do you have? And that's how I would calculate that. So ours would still be the same amount. I would still do $20, but I might also offer like an individual session ticket that you could just pay to get into the sessions that you care about. So, I think it'd be interesting to play with those two scenarios. And then how did your sponsors respond to the event going virtual? Did you adapt the benefits? Did any commit to supporting after you announced the change? So yeah, we're awful at getting sponsors. Like sorry, Marissa, I'm bad at that. I think we got some good ones, and we have loyal sponsors that love us and they get what we're trying to do. So what I offered to them was use of the email list, so that they could directly email all of the participants twice. So hopefully they're using that benefit. And then, yeah, we added their logos and things like that to the website, and then also to every recorded session at the beginning. So people have to watch that before they watch the content. And I think for our sponsors believe in what we're doing. I think it'd be a lot harder. Like vendors are going to be a lot more difficult. But I do think there's a really cool thing about vendors of having a vendor showcase. And maybe that's what you do during lunches, is have like 3 vendors come up and give, short 5-minute presentations, and record that and send those out as little ads, right? And so that they should be educational in value, but giving them that space could be really great. So just letting them do little short presentations, package them up, send them out to folks. You could even do that as social content. Like there's a lot of things to give these vendors really good visibility, if you get creative. And then, cool. Well, that's all my questions. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you for doing what you do to change the world every day, and that all this is tough and all this is hard, and that keeping these things going is important and tough, and you can do it. And I hope this was helpful. Get in touch with me if you need to ask any more questions, or if you'd like a little bit of help in your conference. We're really here to help you with all of your nonprofit communications needs. So have a great time and day wherever you're at, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye, everybody.